it's easy, and when I reflect on my life, it's easy for me to look back on my life and see sitting on the sideline and just calling out hypocrisy, the issues, but then not presenting a solution. I think there's nothing wrong with calling out issues and problem areas, but it's also even better when you can bring forward a solution. And there was nobody else doing that, whether that was the Army, Air Force, whatever branch. And I wanted to do that. The Army taught me to lean into those uncomfortable moments. And I had a good NCO at one point in my life, bring forward a solution. And that's kind of why I picked up to do this.
Today's episode sponsor is Aditon, creators of Aditon Operations Kit, the military's go-to software for personnel and equipment accountability. AOK goes where you do, any network, anytime, any place. I got to know Aditon's co-founders, James and JJ, several years ago. They are former Army NCOs who have years of experience in the tech industry. They understand that most military jobs aren't performed behind a computer desk. Personnel and operations are distributed, but accountability of property is paramount to making mission. That's where Logi, AOK's equipment management software, comes into play. Formerly known as 92X, Logi is a next generation of equipment management for the military. Logi offers unrivaled features for military teams on the go. Ingest and digitize your primary and sub-hand receipts. Generate and share sub-hand receipts and DA forms with your team in just a few clicks. Capture photos, tags, and notes across your team to build context on the state of equipment. Get easy on-the-go access to critical property records. Logi is custom built for the modern military professional. It gives you your valuable time back so you can get back to the mission at hand at home or in the field. Whether you're doing monthly inventories or preparing for deployment, Logi is your pocket property book, giving you real-time visibility into equipment status and mission readiness. Logi is currently in use across the U.S. Army Special Forces, and it's expanding. For a limited time, listeners of the From the Green Notebook podcast can try out Logi for free. Visit aditonpbc.com/FTGN-Logi to get started. That's ADYTONPBC.com/FTGN-LOGE. How do I know what I think until I see what I say?
The Green Notebook, carried by military leaders around the world. Within those pages are sweat, tears, triumphs, and the hard-won lessons of life. Lessons worth sharing. Each week, the team dives into the notebooks of military leaders, business professionals, authors, athletes and coaches, and entertainers to share lessons and help you lead with the best version of yourself.
Welcome to another episode of From the Green Notebook. I'm your host, Joe Byerly, and today we're diving into the Green Notebook of Rob Evans, the creator of Hots&Cots, a platform that's giving junior service members a voice by shining a light on the real conditions of barracks and dining facilities across the military. I first connected with Rob after watching the impact Hots&Cots has had over the last couple of years. And what stood out to me wasn't just the platform itself, but his mindset behind it. Because every day in the military, you walk past things that could be better. And it's easy to point them out. It's easy to complain about them. It's easy to sit around and say, this should be fixed. But what Rob did was something different. He decided to do something about it. And what started as a side project, late nights, early mornings, time carved out between work and family, turned into a tool that's now being used by thousands of service members and getting the attention of senior leaders across the force. In this conversation, we talk about what happens when you stop waiting for change and start building it yourself. We get into the reality of barracks life for junior enlisted soldiers, why so many issues never make it up the chain of command, and how something as simple as visibility can create accountability and real change. Rob also shares what he's learned from the data, what's working, what's not, and why things like HVAC issues, mold, and maintenance failures continue to show up across installations. We also talk about the cost of building something like this, the time, the trade-offs, the sacrifices, and what keeps him going even when it would be easier to walk away. Because at the end of the day, this is about taking care of people and making the system just a little bit better than you found it. So grab your green notebooks and please welcome to the show, Rob Evans.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And I would like to say that, like this is the first time we've ever had a conversation. We got to hang out a little bit at AUSA back in
Yes.
October. And we actually recorded an episode back then too. But just like overwhelmed by the different episodes. And by the time we're looking to actually release this one, I talked to you and found out about the white paper that Hots&Cots recently published. So we're like, why don't we just do it all over again? So this is, and I can fix all the mistakes I made during our first interview. So this will be good.
And I have better lighting. So I think when I went back and I looked at the lighting of the previous one, it didn't look great. So yeah, we can just do a redo.
Yeah. So this is a win-win for everyone. So
yeah, exactly.
You've been online for a while. I've watched Hots&Cots, make an impact, make a difference over the last couple of years. But for folks who aren't familiar with you, can you tell the origin story of why you created this?
Yeah. So I was junior enlisted when I was in the military. I enlisted in 2000. I got out in 2014. I was reserves and guard, multiple deployments, time at different installations. And there was a gap of how the junior service members live and how their living conditions are like versus senior leaders or even those who live off post. If you're officer living on post or something like that, or even senior NCO or something married, you can see what your housing is going to look like. And there isn't anything like that for junior enlisted. You just basically get whatever's out there, whatever the barracks are, that's what you have. And you'll see this pop up online like, hey, I'm going to Fort Drum. I'm going to Fort Hood. What are the barracks like? What's it like there? So that was one avenue of why I wanted to create this. The other part of this is in 2023, the Government Accountability Office released a report on the poor living conditions of the barracks across the Army. But it also talked about like these issues are across all the branches. So I wanted to provide a platform for those who live in the barracks to rate their living conditions and also their dining facilities, of what their dining facilities are like.
I'm gonna call you out here just because I remember the last interview, and I know you're a total nerd. So could you confirm or deny that sometimes you read GAO reports just for fun?
Yes, I do. I do read the GAO. Yeah. I read the whole thing multiple times. The GAO report, the DoD IG report as well. I read that. So yes, I did read that, and I have it bookmarked in my favorites. I still refer to it.
Well, I think if you bring up an important point, because I think every day from like the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're walking past things in the military or whatever walk of life you're in that could use a slight improvement. And, it's very easy to sit down around with a group of people and say, man, this sucks. Or, like, I wish we did this better, or we should change this or whatever. But I think it says something about you and what you've done to where you take that next step into actually saying, why not me? Why don't I be the person that creates that? And I think that's like super admirable of you. Was it talk to me through, like, you read the GAO report, you're going back on your experiences of living in the barracks as an enlisted soldier. Like, where did you make that leap to be like, okay, I'm going to do something about it?
It's easy, and when I reflect on my life, it's easy for me to look back on my life and see sitting on the sideline and just calling out hypocrisy, the issues, but then not presenting a solution. I think there's nothing wrong with calling out issues and problem areas, but it's also even better when you can bring forward a solution. And there was nobody else doing that, whether that was the Army, Air Force, whatever branch. And I wanted to do that. The Army taught me to lean into those uncomfortable moments. And I had a good NCO at one point in my life, bring forward a solution. And that's kind of why I picked up to do this. I'm the developer of it. I was very early in my development career, and I wanted to provide something. And I just started writing code one weekend. Ended up turning into something a lot better. I think I took a week off from work as well to start really kind of fine tune everything and get it out as quickly as possible, so I could have this in the hands of users.
You bring up something there too. Like you said, you took a week off of work. Like, this is not like you're not sitting back making money off of your app. Like, this is your hobby, your passion. Which, by the way,
Yeah.
passion is, I think it's from the Latin root word passio, which means to suffer. So you're putting a lot of time and sweat into this, into Hots and Cots.
Yes, a lot of time, a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings. Unfortunately, at times I've had to sacrifice like time with my family to do this, to work on stuff. You know, I remember being on a camping trip and somebody reaching out, really needing help, and having to set time aside, like an hour, to help this soldier. So yeah, this is not my full time job. This is, I wish it was, but it's not.
Yeah, I love that, and it's been the same with me for, from the Green Notebook. Started it in 2013, and it's not like something I could really do during the duty day. So, before work, I found myself getting up really early, or on the weekends before my family woke up, or even sometimes while my family was sitting in the next room or sitting with me on the couch. I'm on there
Hmm.
like editing, posting, all that stuff. But like, I think when you find something that you're passionate about and you really care about, like, you're going to make time, and I'm sure, people that or people that you've talked to have been like, "Hey, Rob, like, I don't know how you have time for this with your family, your job, all that stuff." But I would imagine that, like me, when you find something that you really care about, like, you will make time for it.
Yeah. You will make time. I have found that you said it perfectly. You're going to make time for things that you really care about. Like I said, I got out in 2014. The military played a very important part in my life in shaping the direction of my life was going to go. And I want to still be able to find ways to make it better, even though I'm not in anymore. But also I have 3 kids, and I'm sure at some point one of them are going to want to go into the military. Um, my dad was in, my grandfather was in. So I want to at least be able to say, like, I did what I could to make this as best as I could for you guys. And also share the realities of what the military is.
Do you like, as you look back since, starting the app and all the tweaks you've made to it along the way, like, how has it grown over time?
It has grown a ton, and it's grown in ways of not just numbers, but of acceptance by leaders. When Hots&Cots first came out, there was like this stigma of this platform that is trying to make the military look bad. And some leaders were put off by that. But, I have made it very clear, like, I want to work with leaders to make things better. And one way we did that was creating a leadership dashboard where verified leaders can anonymously respond to these reviews, and we will moderate the response and show kind of like, and an example would be there were flies in a dining facility, and within 15 minutes, the food chief replied to that review. We approved it because the comment was like, "Hey, thanks for reporting this. We're going to have this treated next weekend. We're going to close the DFAC." So within 15 minutes, an issue was being addressed.
It's amazing. Have you, um, but it wasn't the case like early on. Like, you were actually getting,
No,
were you getting a lot of pushback?
I was getting pushback from leaders. There were some that were like, I heard this secondhand. But it was that it was put out, don't use Hots&Cots. If you are familiar with it, do not post these issues online. Kind of the same things we've kind of heard if we've been in uniform. Don't share the bad stuff. But now I'm texting with command sergeant major, like installation sergeant majors on the reg to address issues. Like, so I mean, it's huge. Like, I wasn't having that before.
That's amazing. And like, to the issue of leaders being like, well, don't post online, you'll make it look bad. I think something that you have to recognize is like human nature and just the pace of work in the army. And so, like, leaders may have the best of intentions of, like, they want to
Hmm.
provide for their soldiers, but there's also 1,000 different missions going on all at the same time. People's attention's getting pulled in 50 different ways. I remember when, I was a commander, like our barracks were not that great. Our sergeant major was all over it, constantly having NCOs and officers in the barracks doing inspections, doing walkthroughs. But there was always something happening because they were old barracks, and like, that's just kind of like the nature of it. But like, a lot of those things, those problems, they don't bubble up past the first line, the second line, the third
Hmm.
line, get to the commander. Commander's not really worried about it because, they've got all this other stuff worried about, and they don't live in the barracks. And so I do think that sometimes you do have to shoot up a red star cluster, to actually get some action going. And I think, again, it goes back to like, it's human nature. Like we're always going to jump on the squeaky wheel. And I think it's a great way of outside accountability too. Because like, people are like actually posting things and it doesn't get watered down in the chain of command either. Like our barracks are great. This is awesome.
No, you're right. You brought up a very good point about the Red Star, like kind of sending up a flare or something, because that was something that I chatted with Secretary of the Army, his team, and Hots&Cots, because I met with them, Secretary of the Army, I think it was last year. But that was something we talked about, was like having this as a tripwire to like, hey, these issues aren't getting addressed at this installation for whatever reason. Hey, send this to us. We can make a friendly call. We can figure out what's going on. And sometimes just a friendly call from the Secretary of the Army to the installation kind of lights that fire to get these things addressed. But like you said, as a commander, you can't be everywhere, and you want to be able to have a way to get this information out. Sometimes a first line supervisor isn't going to see something as important as like I'm as a private who's still new to the Army.
Yeah. And I think everybody too, like comes from like different backgrounds and living conditions, so like, I don't know, like somebody may have grown up with like mold in their house or whatever. And they're like, no big deal. You'll get past it. Like suck it up. But, and kind of like push those issues down. How much has the app grown over the years as far as like users go?
Oh man, I don't have, so I can say that download wise, I'm looking over at my wall here. We've actually have over 15,000 downloads for iOS, and we are around 5,000 downloads for Android. So we're around 20,000 downloads. User wise, I'm not sure what that looks like. I'd have to go and look. I don't have those numbers in front of me, unfortunately.
It's all good. It's all good. That's a lot. That's 20,000 people, inputting like their experiences into the app. And, we're talking about the bad stuff, but like, do people post great reviews on the app as well?
Oh yeah. People post great stuff. We have I have this in the Barracks white paper we mentioned earlier, but we do get good stuff. I mean, that's why it's a 1 through 5 star rating. You're going to rate the good stuff. And I want to see the good stuff because there are installations out there who take care of the barracks. And there's new barracks coming online that why don't we show those off? I think it's equally important to show what's working across installations, but also what's failing.
Yeah.
I want to touch on them real quick because right now, this is kind of a change of gears, but the dining facility side of things on the ice, I've been able to kind of view that data publicly, and everything is exceptional. Like when I look at the dining facility ratings, if everything's exceptional, I mean, that means either that everything can't be exceptional. You're telling me that every dining facility is exceptional across the Army, and that's not the case. We know that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious of why, like this little ice cart. Like I don't know. Maybe I don't want to speculate there of why all those exceptional ratings are coming due. But for folks who aren't familiar with the app, can you talk about like how it works and what you're able to look at on there?
Yeah. So the way it works is you post a review. The review is very simple. You add a title. You rate for the barrack side. You rate the overall rating, your safety, the security. And then you can provide some detailed descriptions. That's optional. More information, the better. You can provide a billing number if you want, but we want to try to keep it as anonymous as possible so there's just not any sort of retaliation. Because that's a real thing that's still out there that happens. And then you upload some photos or video and you post and it goes live immediately. And the dining facilities can be the same thing. It's the rating scale 1 through 5. You can add different tags like, is the dining facility clean? Is it dirty? Long lines? And then same thing, photo, video, and you send it up. Like I want to try to keep it within 30 seconds, like something very quick to post.
I'm curious, are there any like memorable ones that you've seen over the years that just kind of stand out to you?
For good ones, yeah. Honestly, the campus style dining stuff that's come out recently, what they've been doing over at Fort Hood at 42 Bistro has been really good. But even like at Fort Bliss, they are I think there's still 92 golfs running those dining facilities, and I've seen some really great meals come out of there. I don't ever really see a ton of great reviews come out of Fort Bragg. But I will say that breakfast consistently is pretty rated highly. Breakfast, that's pretty consistently easy to get a win on.
What's the most, like, what's the craziest review that you've ever seen on there?
The first one, the one that immediately comes to mind right now is somebody who said there were bats in the wall. That one is one of the wildest one. Another one, I'm trying to remember the installation that it was in. I think it was Campbell. I had to go back, but the ceiling was just black spots, like mold everywhere. And they posted it. And the soldier was like, I guess I'm just going to have to live like this. And within like an hour or so after that, I had the sergeant major texting me from that installation, like, hey, can you find out the building number, or can you get in touch with them so we can get this soldier relocated?
Yeah. Well, that's insane that happened. But two, that is amazing that it was like that quick, the flash to bang. Do you find yourselves when people are posting that you're like, now that you've built this network of contacts throughout the installations, that you were like now, like you'll see something, you'll immediately flag it for somebody, be like, hey, you guys need to go look at this?
Yeah, I will. I will try to flag that. There was some issues that came out at Fort Stewart. I don't want to put them on blast, but there was something at Fort Stewart that came out, and the review said something to the extent of like, I asked for PPE to clean up this mold, and I was told to just file it on my VA claim. And I saw that review come in, and I sent it over to my contact, like, hey, what is this about? And my contact was like, I'm pretty sure that was a first line supervisor or somebody who said that, which it was. But they addressed it. They took action because they're very aware of the conditions of the barracks. And I think a lot of installations are aware of the conditions of the barracks, and they're doing what they can. But unfortunately, for many reasons, they're just falling behind.
Well, there was, I guess was there like a directive or something back in December of 25 that was supposed to, fix a lot of these issues, like they're widespread across the military?
Yep. So it was October, the Barracks Task Force was stood up by Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War. He stood up a Barracks Task Force with a initial funding of $1.2 billion. I was very, they were gracious to invite me to the task force as well. I was the only civilian entity on the task force. Everyone else was a DoD type of entity of employee or contractor there. But yeah, he stood that up to address some of these issues. And I was able to bring the perspective of like, of these issues that we're having that are really easy wins to fix. Like, service members should be able to lock their doors. They should have clean mattresses. They should have like just some really low, easy wins that you can get. Like, we know mold is an issue, HVAC is an issue. But unfortunately, like, there hasn't been a lot of like what has been addressed from that task force. And I've kind of called them out on that. Like, I've been very transparent about that and my disappointment. Like, we have not heard of like what has that $1.2 billion gone to.
Oh man. Like, so since then, like there's been, like, you've collected reviews and you've been able to provide feedback. Like, what have you found?
So I have some stats here from the white paper that we wrote up. So we recently released a white paper here, and it followed kind of similar to the GAO report in 2023, but also it kind of drew parallelism to the UFC, not the UFC fighting, but UFC 4-721-01, which is now a standard DoD regulation on how the barracks should be handled and managed. Kind of like, you need to have functional locks, you need to have mold cleaned up in this certain act is classified in a certain way. So it's like all these standards on how the barracks should be livable.
And real quick for listeners who are listening to this right now and are still thinking like cage match, UFC is Unified Facilities Criteria, which is the acronym. So go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So what we found was, in short, we found that 65% of barracks reviews are rated 1 to 2 stars. The platform-wide average is 2.2. And actually, I just looked at the report. that average rating is actually continually trending down right now. And there are some spikes that went up, but it's just going down right now overall. How service members view the barracks on Hots&Cots. The top systematic failures are HVAC issues, unclean rooms, and mold are the top three. Which I'm not really surprised. Like right now, I'm getting a ton of HVAC issues right now, and I think there's a kind of multitude of reasons why that is. And we can talk about that if you want, or I can kind of go a little bit more on what I found. It's where do you want me to go?
yeah. Just like, why do you think there
Okay.
are HVAC issues right now?
Yeah, so I think one is there's not a consistent scheduling of what the HVAC looks like. Service members don't have individual controllable room thermostats in their room. So you have DPW who are controlling these thermostats. It's an aging system is another thing we found. Like Fort Bragg has a very old HVAC system, and it takes a while for that stuff to turn over to cooling. But I also think last year there was a huge outage at Fort Hood because of a part, like multiple parts they weren't able to get because these systems are pretty old. And there's not really a lot of transparency on when things are going to turn over to heat and cooling. Now, I think that schedule needs to be a little bit more reactive and not based like so hard set on these dates. Every year you see something about how it's getting hotter earlier and earlier. I don't know why that is, but you should be able to adjust to that.
Yeah, and this is totally unrelated, and people are going to listen to it, tell me to like shut up. But I stayed at an Airbnb in Crystal City last month, and they're kind of on a similar schedule. Like there's a certain time of year that I guess like the cooling system cuts on, and it was 80 degrees in that apartment at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Now, granted, I was only staying there for a couple days, but like we're talking about like and people who are not only like living in these places 24/7, but also are required to do like in some cases very dangerous jobs that require them to get a good night's sleep. And you're not getting a good night's sleep when your room is 80 degrees.
No, you're not. And there was a GA report about the quality of sleep in the military. That's a big one. If you're not getting good quality sleep, like you're not going to be able to perform to the best of your ability. So yeah, and the AC issue, you have service members who are just saying like, I'm going to go sleep in my car. I'm going to go sleep outside. There was a review that came in just a couple weeks ago of a soldier sleeping outside at Fort Benning because he was like, she was like, I'm not dealing with this. Like, I'm going to sleep outside. And they can't open their windows at a lot of these installations. And also a lot of these installations won't allow AC window units. They'll tell them to take it out. So it's like, it's just, there's everything. These cards are stacked against these junior service members, while the senior leaders, are they going to go that long without AC? Are they going to take that as an acceptable answer if they can't turn their air on, especially if they have like kids and families?
I'd like to introduce you to our newest partner, Roger Bank, a modern digital military bank built by military members for military members. Whether you're stationed stateside or overseas, Roger is designed to meet the unique needs of our men and women in uniform. I recently opened an account myself, and the process was incredibly smooth. It took less than 10 minutes from start to finish. Now, here's why I'm excited to partner with Roger. They offer high-yield checking and savings accounts, zero account fees, early payday, and automatic savings with Roundup Match. Their military-ready direct deposit form is even auto-populated and signed by the CEO, saving you time and hassle. Plus, you get free global ATM access, real person customer support, and they even offer accounts for service members as young as 17. Funds are FDIC insured through Citizens Bank of Edmond, so you can bank with confidence and peace of mind. Visit roger.bank to learn more. That's ROGER.bank. Yeah, it's a great point you bring up, Rob. And I think too that like, you can put out any directive. You can throw whatever money against whatever problem there is. And unless you have an actual like leader push, kind of like the thing we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, where like you're like, I want to do something about it. I'm going to make time for it. Unless you have that leadership push, like standing over, like driving that change, Yeah, I do think that the whatever was it, the $1.2 billion is kind of just going to I don't know, like it's been and we won't see real change unless leaders are actually taking an active stance in this, which again is hard because there's a
Hmm.
thousand other things that have to be done. And they're battling barracks that are decades and decades old, HVAC systems that are
Yep.
decades and decades old. And so yeah, it really is a system that, you know, needs a huge leadership push right now.
It does. And I am not like, I don't, I get, I've never been at a leader level that high, but I can appreciate how many different ways they're being pulled as installation commanders in that team. Um, but it's just unfortunate that, that there isn't any sole person that is kind of over this stuff at an installation level. But also, the installation commanders, they don't always necessarily have, and the GA report talked about this. All the installation commanders don't always have the same priority for barracks versus like maybe the hospitals on installation. They may value putting more money towards the hospitals than barracks. So then barracks fall to the wayside again in that case. And right now, Fort Myer is a big one. I'm getting that's kind of been popping up a ton, where you have a lot of these senior leaders who live on these posts, but then the junior enlisted, their barracks are falling apart, which is very unfortunate to see.
Well, we went off on like down a HVAC rabbit hole.
We did.
What were some of the
so,
other
so
things that came up in it? Yeah.
let me Yeah. Let me talk about some of the good stuff. There was 20% of the reviews are 4 to 5 star reviews, and they talk about service members like they're responsive to maintenance. There is that out there. There's like modern facilities. Some of the reviews called about leadership walking through the building, which they appreciate. Um, but you also then see issues of like the Department of Public Works. There's not a lot of trust that came. One of the things that came out of there was like service members don't have a lot of faith and trust in Department of Public Works or DPW. We've seen come up a lot in the reviews of DPW closed my work order without acknowledging it or getting in contact with me, or they said this isn't our issue. Just a lot of like things that are happening with DPW that's not instilling trust with service members, which is very unfortunate because they are the gateway to get these issues addressed.
What are you mentioned like the good news thing about leaders walking through barracks? Like, have you like some of the things that I'm curious what you've seen that's worked, and one of the things I'll share with you. I remember my sergeant major, like I think it was like one day a week after PT. Sometimes he was real quick. I'll just back up a little bit. Like he was a runner and
Mm-hmm.
like a long distance, fast paced runner. And by the time I got to that part of my career, like my knees didn't work so great. And so I could not go on these runs all the time with him. But when I did go, and he slowed down and did a very short pace, Command Sergeant Major Yellow Save, we would go through the barracks together. And one of the places he would go was the laundry room. And he was always pulling the lint traps on the dryer just to make sure that the guys and girls were actually like cleaning those after, because he recognized that a lot of times what happens is like, one, you've got dryers that maybe not are older or not working that great anyways. And then you've got soldiers that aren't cleaning the lint traps at all. And then like the system ends up like burning out. And so like that was just like one check he was doing just to make sure
Yeah.
that like he was getting ahead of the problem.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great thing. And I think that's part of it. I think the barracks conditions, I think they're one of the things I see from time to time is there's this blame put on the junior enlisted on the conditions of the barracks. And I don't think I think there's more to it than I think it's more nuanced than just the barracks are falling apart because of junior enlisted. That's not the case. I think things are falling apart across the board and the junior enlisted are doing what they can to keep the ship afloat. But I think it does take somebody at that position to kind of help these new members of the military who are very young, who may not understand, who've never done laundry before. They don't really know that stuff. So I think that's a great thing that the leader is doing, is kind of showing like, hey, you got to do this to keep things working. You need to do this PMCS on the washer and dryer to keep it going. But I think there's also this two-way street of this contract of leaders also need to be responsible of making sure that the major issues are getting looked at as well.
The other thing too is like who we're assigning as our barracks managers. Another one, like the guy that was doing it was a much older 19 Delta Cav Scout,
Mm-hmm.
like much older. Matter of fact, I think he was like the oldest guy in our entire regiment. But and we used to joke around, call him the soup. But he was so passionate about making sure like the barracks work orders were getting processed quickly. He was just all over it. Like he had a passion for taking care of younger people. And so I think that too is like the people we select for those positions, whether it's the barracks manager or some other job. It's not just a tasking of who's available. It's like it's an interview and somebody who like is almost like a fire and forget weapon. Like there were like improvements being done that like none of us knew about because like he had such a great relationship with the DPW over in Europe that like it was amazing.
You need that.
Yeah.
You need that because not everybody who's doing barracks management is tasked to that full time. And I think you need to have someone tasked to doing barracks management full time to have an understanding of the condition of things. How can I get things looked at? How can I push on DPW? How can I make these connections? Because a lot of being in the military is about connections and who you know. Like you needed something from supply. If you had a good relationship with them, there's not a problem. You're not going to have any issues getting something. But if you don't have that relationship, it's probably going to take you a little bit longer to get whatever you may need. And I experienced that when I was in. And I'm sure you saw that as well from your side. Another good thing that came out of that is 16% of the reviews showed issues resolved. So it's 95 documented resolutions. And it shows that that feedback loop works with leaders being engaged at, like I saw this with JBLM has a 60% resolution rate when issues get posted. They will engage with the reviews. And then Fort Hood is another one who's really, I can't remember their number right now, but they had a really high percentage as well on engaging with reviews when they came in that needed to be addressed. So, I mean, that closed loop feedback of leaders engaging when a review gets posted, it shows one, leaders are paying attention. And it's kind of making things, it's one less thing that junior enlisted member needs to worry about if it's going to be looked at or addressed.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this too, Rob. I just finished a book called The Algorithm by John McNeil. He was the president of Tesla under Elon Musk in like 2000, I think like 15 to 19, somewhere in there. And then I also read I think it's a book called The Blueprint by Phil Gilbert, who like completely changed the culture of IBM. And so I'm thinking about like those two things, and both of those books talk about the need for accountability. like you can build any system you want, but unless you have accountability built into it, like the chances of it making progress, of change, all those things are less likely to happen. And so like as you're talking and as I've had a chance to check out Hots&Cots myself, reading the white paper, like you're that accountability mechanism that is like, like you've done it outside the system, but you've given leaders something to actually use that they can then incorporate into their own processes to make sure that like the stuff is happening the barracks are taken care of. And so again, like you're right. Accountability sucks. Nobody like wants to be told that they're like shit smells bad. But I do think that like you have to have that. And so I think right now, Hots&Cots is a great resource for leaders and installations to leverage in order to be able to see that stuff. And it's not getting polished. That's the other thing. Stuff that gets like briefed on a slide a lot of times gets polished. Bubbles get turned green, And so I think you've created something that's outside the system that helps, provide them with a mechanism in that feedback loop to actually make positive change.
And that's what I want to do. And that's kind of been my whole goal is one, provide a platform so service members, junior enlisted can share their barracks and their dining facilities of what's working and not. But also I want to make this a two-way street with leaders being able to understand where they need to improve, or what things need to be addressed. Because there's nothing wrong with the tool. Let me rephrase that. There's nothing wrong with using Hots&Cots as a force multiplier in the tools that they have. And I think if you're a leader, you're going to want to use, whether that's in combat or whether it's just doing stuff in garrison, you're going to want to use every tool you have available to make things better. And you need to be rapidly and quickly evolving. And I think Hots&Cots gives that ability. There are tools in place. There's ARMA, there's ICE, but I think there's things lacking in those areas. Maybe not necessarily in ARMA, but how ARMA is managed and the data that's being returned and how that data is being used. It's 2026 and data is everything and how you make decisions. And I want to be able to provide analytics and pieces of data so that informed decisions can be made on how to make things better.
So if a leader is listening to this and they're just curious about their post, they could reach out to you through the website, through the app, and ask you questions directly, right?
Yeah, I've been on so many calls with installation commanders to talk about Hots&Cots, and also for them to share what they're doing. As earlier this year, I met with Hawaii and I chatted with their installation commander. I think there was like a week or 2 weeks before they had their Barracks town hall to kind of talk about Hots&Cots, but also what they're doing and some of the challenges. And I think, there's this piece of why, and I think junior enlisted are missing part of that, of why things are. And I think that would help also as well.
Well, this is a lot of work, and obviously it's a hobby, it's a passion, but have you figured out a way to help fund this app other than your pockets?
So some inside baseball, I do have a cage code. I am registered on SAMS. I've explored possibilities for contracts to do this full time. I've pitched to the Secretary of the Army when I was there, hey, I would love to be able to be part of your ecosystem, the DoD ecosystem in some capacity, in some way. And I have not found a way yet, though, to kind of make this a full-time venture. So I'm continually looking and always looking for ways to do that.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm in the same boat. This is still a hobby that pays for itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's nobody bankrolling Hots&Cots. It's out of my own pocket and the work that I do to kind of fund this thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean,
fortunately and unfortunately.
Again, one of the benefits to this is I've had amazing sponsors. Again, it covers the cost of doing this because apparently podcasting is expensive. Nobody told me that. Nobody told me that podcasting and newsletters were expensive when I got started. I had to figure that out the hard way.
Yeah.
So I would like to point out too, it's not just you behind Hots&Cots. You do have help, right?
Yeah, I have one other person, Alex. She was not able to join, but she came on probably about a year ago now to help doing social media, comms, media relations, things of that nature, which has been hugely beneficial because, trying to do development and social media work, it's a ton. You probably know this. Social media is another aspect of this in this day and age where you have to stay on top of it, competing with algorithms and everything like that. And I found that, I don't want to say the hard way, but I tried to stay off of social media to some capacity. I didn't want to get on Instagram and Facebook, but that's a huge audience there that you're missing out on. And especially my demographics of who I'm focusing on was on Instagram. So I had to jump on there and, it's something else I had to figure out. How do I balance development work, social media, advocacy? So Alex has been hugely beneficial in that space.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks for Alex. We've had From the Green Notebooks had a team of volunteers over the years, and it's gone from a team of 20, and now it's me and one other person trying to do it all, and we're not doing it well at all.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, when you're trying to volunteer time with a lot of competing things, it's hard to kind of. Eventually, at some point, you got to volunteer your time. It has to stop. And I've been in that situation volunteering. And it's I can't keep doing this. But and that's great to have those volunteers though at that time because it does help.
Yeah, but before I hit the record button on this episode, Rob and I were just chatting and he was asking me how busy I was, and I told him like, yeah, I just got to quit doing all these like side quests. And he was like, you said the exact same thing back in October. So I have not gotten any better at it, but I still refuse to let go of From the Green Notebook. So, and I'm sure like you could get busy, but Hots&Cots will still be your baby that you continue to raise.
Yeah, I can't see myself anytime soon letting go of Hots&Cots. I will find myself at times wondering and questioning if I should, but then I will have a service member reach out wanting help or say that we helped them in some capacity, and that kind of really helps, and kind of resets like, hey, this is making a difference. It moved the needle a little bit forward, and it's progress. So that helps me. It kind of gets me going again.
I love that you said that. I do the same exact thing. Like I think I've tried to close the doors on From the Green Notebook like 4 or 5 times over the last 13 years. And it's usually like, as I'm thinking about it, I get that one email or text message or direct message with a really positive, feedback on what
Mhm.
the platform's done for them or the podcast or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, like I got to keep punishing myself. Like this is,
Yeah,
I just helped this one person, so I can do it another year or two.
that's exactly how I feel. Like, and I think I actually was just last night chatting with somebody at an installation, talking about how appreciative of the work that we're doing, and it kind of really helps a lot. It shows that it's making a difference, and I'm impacting people's lives, which part of why I joined the military. Everyone joins for different reasons. I think as I look back and reflect, I think part of that was just trying to make an impact on people's lives in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I appreciate your time, man. I think we like not like take 2 of this interview was amazing. And again, I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate what you're doing for
Yeah.
everybody. And it's, from somebody that's been doing this on the side now for a while, like I know what goes into it and I know how passionate you are about this. So I just want to say thank you, because you are helping my soldiers out. Even though I might not have always appreciated the reviews on Hots&Cots, but like you were helping us make things better. So thanks again, man.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me. And I really always a pleasure to chat with you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of From the Green Notebook podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please give us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us gain visibility and the opportunity to help more people on their leadership journey. Also, make sure you check out our website at www.fromthegreennotebook.com. There, you can listen to past episodes, read leadership articles written by military leaders from around the world. You can sign up for our monthly reading list email where you can learn about new books that are coming out, and our Sunday reflection email that comes out every Sunday morning. Is really short. It's a 2-minute read, but I guarantee you it's going to start your week off on the right foot. Finally, make sure you follow us on Twitter at FTGN Notebook, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for From the Green Notebook. Again, thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. I am humbled by the opportunity to learn these lessons alongside you. So please join us next week for another episode of From the Green Notebook, where we're going to help you lead with the best version of yourself.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon.